Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope y'all are having a great day. And with no further ado, let me get into my Sunbelt predictions. I've already done the power conferences along with the Pac-12, the American, and the Mountain West. So if you haven't checked those videos out, go and do so. And I will link them down in at the end of this video if you guys want to go see them. But with no further ado, let's get into my Sunbelt predictions. Starting off with week one, there's no week zero games. So starting off, Georgia State taking on North Carolina A&T. I said Georgia State maybe gets their only win of the season, and it was one of the worst programs in the FBS. Then on the Southern Miss taking on Alcorn State. Let's say the Golden Eagles get the win there. Old Dominion taking on Norfolk State should be pretty easy win for Old Dominion. Same with Georgia Southern, Louisiana Tech, Louisiana, App State, and South Alabama. All taking on FCS schools. I think they all should win those matchups. We have seen some recent FCS upsets against the mid majors or group of six, but I think they should take care of business. Then you got ULM, Mississippi State. Sorry, Red Hawks, but I don't think they're really anywhere close to competing with the SEC or really any power conference team. Same with, I think Penn State will beat Marshall. West Virginia, Coastal Carolina, I think will be a good game, but I just feel like the Mountaineers at home, week one, it's going to show at least some promise for the season. But we've got some big non-conference um, games against mid majors. JMU takes on Liberty, a rivalry in the state of Virginia. The two played last year, and JMU dominated. And I think they're going to do much of the same. I'm not very high on the Flames. And, once upon a time, they were seen as like this top team in the Conference USA that would eventually, move on to a better conference. But they haven't had that much success the last recent years, and it might just continue to go downhill. Arkansas State, Memphis, a rivalry in the non-conference. I like to see these rivalries still being played, even if the two schools aren't in the same conference. But I think Memphis at home gets the win, and then Troy, Sam Houston. Not much history between these two, and I think Troy wins their week one matchup. Went on to week two. Still got some FCS games like JMU should be Wagner, Coastal Carolina should be Fordham. South State should beat West Georgia, and Troy should beat Alabama State. But do have some interesting non-conference games, including this South Alabama Tulane game. I don't think Tulane is going to be very great, but I do think they are a better program than South Alabama, and I think they're going to win there. Marshall taking on Middle Tennessee, Conference USA matchup. I say Marshall, after a tough season last year, after Charles Huff left them, I think they rebounded in year two and get a win here. Old Dominion taking on Virginia Tech and Georgia Southern taking on Clemson. So two Sun Belt teams taking on ACC competition. Old Dominion's kind of had Virginia Tech's number in recent years, but I think the Hokies with a hopefully newfound success with James Franklin, I think they get the win there. And I think Clemson, who I think will lose to LSU in week one, will bounce back against Georgia Southern this week. Moving on, App State, ECU, another non-conference rivalry. This time in the state of North Carolina. The Pirates are the better program, but aren't that great. So I think App State could keep this game close, but I'm gonna say ECU does get the win. Louisiana Tech, LSU. I think Louisiana Tech could give LSU real fight, especially early on. Maybe LSU's offense isn't clicking, with a lot of new pieces on both the coaching staff and on the roster. But I still think the Tigers win. USC, Louisiana, there's not much to say. I think Trojans win that game. UL Monroe against UAB. Um, Two programs very much at the bottom of their conferences, but I'm going to trust the Blazers with a new head coach, maybe a newfound rejoins, gets the win there. Georgia State, Kennesaw State. And Kennesaw State lost a lot of players after winning the Conference USA title. So maybe Georgia State, you know, a sort of rivalry, even though I don't think it's that big of a rivalry in Georgia. Maybe the Georgia State could put off the upset. And you know what? I'm going to say they do. I'm going to say they upset Kennesaw State on the road. And then Southern Miss going to Auburn. Um, I got the Tigers getting a win there. Moving on to week 3. We're still got some non-conference games. Mostly FBS, though there is one FCS with Louisiana Monroe, who I think will get their first win against Louisiana, Southeast Louisiana. So starting off, James Madison, San Diego State, a huge matchup between these two. Um, one of those big time marquee mid-major games that could decide who makes the conference, who makes the playoff. And I think I'm higher on the Aztecs. I think at home against JMU, they get the win. I know I've picked a lot of home teams, but when we get into conference play, I'm sure that will definitely change. UAB going on the road to Louisiana. The Raging Cajuns hosting the Blazers. And I think I had UAB taking this game. Sorry, Louisiana. I think UAB will be a pretty good team this year. And I think maybe with finally no more Trent Dilfer, the team finally will look more competent and get these, wins early on in the season. Moving on, Georgia Southern, Jacksonville State. Let's say Georgia Southern on the road. Jacksonville State, I know, made it to the conference championship the last couple of years. Clearly, them and Western Kentucky are like the top programs in the Conference USA, but the Sun Belt is a better conference, and I think Georgia Southern will get the win. Louisiana Tech taking on Baylor. I could see Louisiana Tech depending on how Baylor looks early on, maybe could pull off this upset. But I'm gonna say the Bears gonna win there. Marshall, Missouri State. Remember this game last year? Missouri State, first year as an FBS team, pulled off the upset on the road. I'm gonna say Marshall does the same thing, winning this game. Ohio, South Alabama. New head coach for the Bobcats, another one for the last couple of years, taking on a South Alabama team. I think under Major Applewhite are really consistent, and I'm going to say they get the win there. TCU, UCF, and Missouri. I'm sorry, I think they take care of business. I mean, maybe Troy could give Missouri some scare, but Georgia State, I don't think will give UCF much of a test, and Arkansas State maybe. Um, Especially with the proximity between them and TCU, maybe there's some not bad blood, but maybe some close geography that could help the Red Wolves keep it close. UConn, Southern Miss. I'm gonna say Southern Miss at home, which might seem crazy, but UConn bringing in a new coach and Jason Candle, first year. Most of their players did leave for Colorado State with Jim Mora, and I feel like Southern Miss definitely could. Um, yeah, what's the word? I think Southern Miss definitely could early on in the season, get a win like this. Coastal Carolina, Delaware. I think the Blue Hens can be a contender in the CUSA, but the Chanticleers better program, and I think get the win. And then a couple of rivalries: ECU, Old Dominion, and Charlotte, App State. I'm gonna say ECU beats Old Dominion on the road. Old Dominion did lose a lot of pieces in the offseason, and I do think the Pirates are a real threat this year in the American. And I think App State beats Charlotte. The 49ers, I think, will be better than last year, but I still think the Mountaineers are just slightly better. And at home, I think they take care of business. Moving on to week 4, where it's still mostly non-conference games. Now we do have a conference matchup down here, but Marshall should beat. I think that's Gardner Webb. Yeah, Marshall should beat them. But moving on, Liberty, Coastal Carolina, another team in the Sun Belt that plays Liberty. I think the Chanticleers get a win there. I'm just not high on the Flames, and I think they definitely are in for another down season. Louisiana, Charlotte. This could be a good game, and I'm going to say Charlotte at home gets the win. Although I could see Louisiana pulling off the upset. You know what? I'm going to say Louisiana goes to Charlotte, gets the win. Tulane, I think, beats Southern Miss. Will Hall, former Southern Miss head coach, taking on the Golden Eagles, and I think Tulane at home gets a win there. NC State, Kentucky, and Houston, I think all will win. NC State, App State could be a nice North Carolina rivalry, but I think the Wolfpack will win. Kentucky should beat South Alabama, and while Houston does have to go on the road against Georgia Southern, I do think the Cougars will be, very ready for this upcoming season, and they're not going to have slip ups like they did last year on the road. NIU, Georgia State. I picked NIU to win. I'm not very high on Georgia State this year. Kennesaw State, Arkansas State. I'm going to say the Red Wolves at home get a win there. FAU, UL Monroe. Could be a fun game. The Owls project to be maybe an American team, or UL Monroe seems to be closer to the bottom, and I'm going to say FAU gets a win there. Troy, Utah State. I'm pretty sure I had the Aggies getting a win there. And then JMU, Old Dominion, first conference matchup. I'm going to say JMU on the road wins, driving Old Dominion down to 1-3. Not a easy start for Old Dominion. Now we move into mostly conference matchups. Do have that Army Louisiana Tech game, but starting off Arkansas State, Louisiana. Both teams sit at 2-2, so should be a fun game. And I'm going to say Louisiana at home gets the win. UM Monroe, South Alabama. Should be a fun game, but I'm going to say South Alabama gets the win. Army, I think, beats Louisiana Tech. Sorry, Louisiana Tech, but I think Army, really talented team, gets win there. Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina. Should be a fun game. Coastal Carolina 3-1, Georgia Southern 2-2. So both teams, you know, somewhat decent conference schedules. I'm gonna say Coastal Carolina at home get the win. Old Dominion, Georgia State, with Old Dominion to bounce back after a tough conference loss to JMU. They knock off Georgia State, and then Marshall, JMU. Yeah, I'm gonna say Marshall on the road. We saw, last year these two teams play, and Marshall nearly beat JMU. I'm gonna say JMU. Does have Billy Napier, and he's known for winning a lot of Sun Belt games with his time at Louisiana. But I'm gonna say, they get a tough loss early on to Marshall. Moving on to week 6 now, as we're fully into conference play. Southern Miss and Troy. Say the Trojans get this win here to the 3-2. South Alabama, Arkansas State, both, or no, one's 2-3, one's 3-2. I'm gonna say Arkansas State gets their first conference win of the season. Coastal Carolina, Marshall. I have them both at 4-1, so this would be a huge matchup early in the season. And I'm gonna say the Chanticleers win here big, moving to 5-1, and maybe putting themselves in a huge spot early in the season. But out to Louisiana Tech. The rivalry finally comes back to being a conference matchup. And I'm going to say Louisiana Tech beats Louisiana. I'm going to say they get their first Sun Belt Conference win since joining the conference this upcoming season. Old Dominion, App State. Old Dominion sitting down at 1-2-3. App State 2-2. So should be interesting game. I'm gonna say, mm, yeah, I'm gonna say App State at home gets the win, and then JMU, Georgia Southern. The Dukes coming off a tough loss. I'm gonna say they bounce back against Georgia Southern and get a win on the road. We're on to week 7, so we're now in the second half of the season. Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, both sitting at 2-4. But Georgia Southern is the one that hasn't won a conference game. I'm gonna say they do. I'm gonna say they go on the road and gonna win there. App State, Coastal Carolina, the two top teams in this conference, and I'm gonna say App State pulls off the upset, knocking off Coastal Carolina. Troy, Louisiana, say the Trojans win that one. Louisiana falls to 3-4. Georgia State, JMU, say the Dukes win that one. Louisiana Tech, Louisiana Monroe, another rivalry returning, and I'm gonna say UL Monroe gets a win here. Their first conference win, leaving just Southern Miss and Georgia State without a conference win, and then Arkansas State, Southern Miss. Southern Miss down here at 2-3, Arkansas 3-3. I'm gonna say the Golden Eagles get a win there to make Georgia State the only team that has not won a conference game, and who knows if they will. But on South Alabama, Marshall, both schools up here 1-1 in conference play, and I'm gonna say Marshall at home gets the win. JMU, App State, huge battle here, especially where the standings are. And I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna say JMU on the road gets another huge win. It was 6-2. Louisiana Monroe, Troy. I got the Trojans. I'm very high on Troy after last year making it to the title game, but losing to JMU, I think they could possibly get the revenge on JMU and win this year. Georgia State, Arkansas State. Say the Red Wolves get back on track. Louisiana Tech, Old Dominion. Old Dominion 2-5. Louisiana Tech 2-4. So two teams very much struggling early on. And I'm going to say Old Dominion on the road gets the win. And then Louisiana, Southern Miss. Both schools, so they have 3 wins. And I'm gonna say Southern Miss gets the win here to move to 4-3. Moving on to Troy, JMU, the two top teams right here. And you know what? I'm gonna say Troy on the road stays unbeaten in conference play and knocks off the Dukes. App State, Georgia Southern. I'm gonna say Georgia Southern at home gets the win. Marshall, Old Dominion. I'm gonna say Marshall gets a win there, vaulting them up to second place because remember they beat JMU early in the season. Southern Miss, ULM. I'm gonna say ULM gets the win there. Georgia State, Coastal Carolina. Say the Chanticleers get a win there. Then Louisiana Tech, South Alabama. I'm gonna say South Alabama at home moves to 4-4, and was a very competitive Sun Belt conference in my opinion. Went on to week 10, JMU, Southern Miss. Could be a trap game for the Dukes, but I'm gonna say after a tough loss, they get back on track. Marshall, Georgia Southern, another potential trap game for the Herd, but I'm gonna say Georgia Southern does pull off the upset here. South Alabama, Louisiana, two teams at the bottom. My bad. I'm gonna say Louisiana at home gets the win. Louisiana Tech Troy. I'm gonna say the Trojans stay unbeaten in conference play, moving to 7-0. ULM Arkansas State. I'm gonna say ULM gets the win on the road. Old Dominion Coastal Carolina. I'm gonna say the Chanticleers win this one, and then App State I think wins that one over Georgia State. Moving on to week 11. So we're getting down to the end of this schedule. Louisiana, UL Monroe. Both teams kind of in the middle of this conference, and I'm going to say Louisiana on the road gets the win. Troy, South Alabama. Could this be another trap game? If South Alabama 4-5, Troy. Yeah, I'm going to say it is. I'm going to say the Trojans lose. App State, Marshall. I'm going to say the Herd win this one. Actually, no, I'm going to say App State goes on the road and upsets Marshall. JMU, I think, beats UConn. Remember that game last year? JMU was undefeated going to UConn, and it seemed like a trap game. JMU stayed it off. I'm going to say they do the same here. Southern Miss, Louisiana Tech. I'm going to say Louisiana Tech gets the win there. And then the Chanticleers against the Red Wolves. I'm going to say let's say the Chanticleers get the win to vault into the top spot because of their record here. And then Georgia Southern, Georgia State, going to take Georgia Southern to be bowl eligible. Moving to 6-4. Um, Moving on to week 12. Um, Louisiana Tech, Arkansas State. Yeah, I'm gonna say Louisiana Tech back-to-back wins to move to 4-7. Southern Miss, South Alabama. I'm gonna say South Alabama gets the win there. Old Dominion, UConn. I'm gonna say UConn gets the win. Dropping Old Dominion to 3-8. Marshall, Georgia Southern. I got the Herd winning that game. App State, UL Monroe. I got the Mountaineers. Moving to 7-4. Troy, Georgia Southern. Could this be a trap game? I'm gonna say Troy wins this, and then Coastal Carolina, Louisiana. Could be a trap game. Coastal Carolina going on the road. But I'm going to say they handle their business and get a win there. And then final week of the season, week 13, rivalry week. Uh, App State, South Alabama. I'm going to say South Alabama gets the win there. Louisiana, Georgia State. I'm going to say Louisiana gets a win. Being bowl eligible is Georgia State 2-10. 2 wins. I think it's better than last year's. Louisiana Tech, Georgia Southern. 6-5, 4-7. I'm gonna say Georgia Southern gets the win there. JMU, Coastal Carolina, winner would be in the title game. And I'm gonna say Coastal Carolina clinches their spot, going 10-2. Southern Miss, Old Dominion. Yeah, I'm gonna say Old Dominion gets their um third win of the conference and driving Southern Miss down. Marshall, ULM. I'm gonna say Marshall moves to 8-4 and a really good season. Then finally Troy, Arkansas State, the Red Wolves maybe trying to upset Troy, who, depending on if the JMU Coastal Carolina game would be earlier in the day, could not have much to play for. But I'm saying the Trojans get the win, meaning this is your title game. Coastal Carolina, Troy, and I'm gonna say the Trojans win it. They beat Coastal Carolina. And I don't know if did they play this year? I don't think they did, which means it'd be the first time the two played. And I'm gonna say Troy gets the win, meaning I think Detroit Trojans are your Sun Belt champs. Though 10 wins, putting them in the conversation with the rest of the count with the rest of the mid-major winners. But that'll do it for today's video. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. You guys can check me out on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram. So go check me out wherever to see these videos. Hope you guys enjoy the video. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow for my MAC predictions. Friday will be my Conference USA predictions as we finish out my college football 2026 predictions. And then next week, start my NFL division predictions as we go division by division, picking games. And then the season is right around the corner. So hope you guys enjoy this video. And until next time, hope you have a great day and bye.